Okay, it's counting down. The theme is almost here. Let's see. I want ideas from all of you. The second the timer hits zero and the theme is shown, I want ideas from all of you. Like specific like gameplay mechanic ideas like for the theme. Okay, there we go. One, zero. What? Do I need to reload? Okay, jam ends in 14 days. Got that. Predictably unpredictable. Okay. Okay. No, not a bad theme, no. Okay. Feel free to explore in any way you can think of. The game can contain bait and switch gameplay, trap mechanics, fake choices, unreliable narrators, glitchy aesthetics, or psychological trickery. Wait, my chat is disconnecting for some reason. Okay, all good. Okay. So, predictably unpredictable. Like, unpredictable, I get. Like, okay, it's a game and things in front of you that, like, you don't know what's coming at you. But it's predictably unpredictable. So, you can predict. See, right now, my brain isn't working at full capacity for thinking of game ideas because, like, half of it is taken by, like, just trying to read chat as well. So, it's going a bit slow, but that's why I want ideas from all of you. Let's see. A rage quit platformer. I don't want to make a platformer, honestly. Like, I know there's a lot of platformers out there already, very common. But like, I've also made so many platformers. Like, I'm just tired of it by now. So it'll probably be like a top-down game. But okay, let me try to think of something predictably unpredictable. Um, so unpredictable things that you don't know it's coming at, like you can't guess it at all, but predictably unpredictable so you can predict it. Like, doesn't that just describe, I guess loops could factor into it? I i don't see how, but I think it just describes any combat system to me, because you can go into a boss battle and you don't know what's coming at you, but once the boss has done like 3 or 4 or 5 attacks, you start learning, okay, these are the attacks it can do. So something that was unpredictable now is sort of predictable, but you don't exactly know when these attacks are coming or in what order. So once the enemy starts attacking, you can see like, okay, which attack are they doing? Okay, I know this is that attack, so I need to like parry, or I need to block, or I need to like dash out of the way. So that is sort of predictably unpredictable. I find it to be a contradiction. Yeah, but it's also funny. So, uh, yeah, GameMaker likes my idea. Okay, okay, that is one thing. But yeah, that basically describes any combat system, doesn't it? So that's not very different. That's like any enemy that can do a variety of attacks, and then you have to look at the attacks. And my AC has turned off for some reason. You need to look at those attacks and like parry or respond accordingly. But I want to do something different as well. I want to see like, I feel like this is the kind of theme that I need time to like just sit down and think about to actually like crack it, because I think there was something behind it that I am not able to fully understand right now. But please give me your ideas. Like, look at the theme, predictably unpredictable. The reason why I'm doing the stream is so that we can make a game together. And so if you look at the theme and if you get any ideas, like anything crazy, right? You don't have to like try to think about it. The first thing that you get, just write it in the chat, and we'll see if we can make something work, because we wanna make a game together and we wanna see like if we can like come up with an idea together. It's just been 4 minutes since the theme was revealed, so not too long. We have time. Make a game like a scary game, like Sonic EXE. Yeah, that's just unpredictable, but yeah. All I can think of is a beach in Iceland that snatches people. Okay, that's a interesting idea. Hmm. S- I'm gonna wait for some more ideas as well, just so we can get everything together. That's why 2 weeks also works. Yeah, it's a theme to chew on. The impossible quiz. I actually don't know that, so storm is coming, but don't know what the effects will be. Wind damage, flooding, lightning. I like that idea because it tells me that the thing that I need to do for predictably unpredictable doesn't just have to be based on enemies and their attacks. It can be about the environment as well. Combat where your main attack does random things. Okay, so all of a sudden now we are getting multiple good ideas. So I need to think about this as well. Dice with memory. Oh, like a smart dice. Yeah, randomization is a big part of this, but like in a calculated way as well. So I like the environmental idea that sort of ties into the beach theme as well. Like you don't know what the weather is gonna be like on the beach, but like I said, there's a storm coming, wind damage, flooding, lightning. Boss rush game where you fight someone other than boss in the last room and the boss just watches. It's a funny idea. Rock paper scissors, but every round the rule changes on what beats what. Hmm. I think there's a lot of good ideas here. Like if any one of you see a good idea that you want to make a game on, like feel free to just like yeah make your game as well. I'm still thinking on what I want to make. I do want to make something like top down with enemies. Hmm. I like the weather changing idea. Think about what you want the player to experience, then brainstorm mechanics. I think they just want players to be confused. That's it. And that's actually a good goal, because like your players will have a lot to think about. Like a lot of times when you play games and they're too easy, you're like, no, it's not making me think. So it's good. This goal. Hmm. Okay. There can be what I'm thinking about right now. So Ross is gonna take a cut of the ideas. If I ever finish the game, then which I don't think I can, but I'll give you a cut if I do finish it. So what I'm thinking of already is a game where there are like enemies around you and they can do a variety of attacks. So you don't know which attack is coming at you at what time. Stay hydrated. But the I like the environment changing ideas. So the environment can also change, and that affects what attack an enemy does. So let's say we have a player. The basic idea that I'm thinking of sort of is like if you saw Doom the Dark Ages, I've been playing that a lot recently, and the way like enemies send attacks at you and you have to parry it at the right time. I like that idea, and I want to do something with that. But there's basically, let's say, for to start with, what if it's a fighting game but you don't fight your enemy, you date them? Yeah, then they will be confused and you're the predictably unpredictable one. So there's three different enemy types, and depending on their color, they have different colors. Depending on their color, they do a particular type of attack. So you know which enemy is gonna do which attack, and then there needs to be different buttons for input. So you can do three types of attacks depending on which attack is coming in at you. But the weather also keeps changing. For the weather, let's say for now, like, let's just make it a background color, and the background color keeps changing, and that changes the attack that each enemy does. I need to adjust my AC again. Just give me a second. It got a little hot in here. Maybe because my brain is running so fast with all these ideas. So, yeah, just like every few seconds. So, every few seconds, the weather color changes, and that of course changes the attacks that the enemies do. But if they've already released an attack out, it'll also change that attack. So, like, if you see an attack coming at you, yeah, the AC is pretty unpredictable. uh, so, if you see an attack coming at you and the weather changes, then that attack, even if it's like a feet away from you, it'll change, and you're gonna have to, like, yeah, just stay on your toes, like with uh, the weather changing, and so that attack can change and you need to respond accordingly. So weather background color changing could change what you can see. I think that could be used as some variation down the line, but I think as for the idea that we have right now, it would be too much, so I'm gonna stick to what we have so far. But I think we have a pretty good idea so far already. So let's do that. I need to figure out how the inputs are gonna work for this, because you're gonna have three different kinds of attacks coming at you. So you need three different buttons that you can press to do a certain kind of attack. So I could like move with WASD, and I could do my attacks with, because like the mouse only has two buttons really. I don't want to use the middle wheel. So it could be JKL, but the user will need to first like make the connection with, okay, this attack is J and this is K and this is L. Maybe I make the attacks look like the button, but that makes it too easy. Then it sort of just becomes like a typing game. So we're not gonna do that. We might be able to figure out the UX later on, but I think we have a pretty good idea. So let's start with what we have. I am gonna load up GameMaker, and let's just start making something. We have the basic idea down. Let me see if I have code editor too. I don't have it enabled, so let me just enable this. Because I primarily just use code editor 2 now. It's just so good. It's coming together. It is coming together, yeah. A loop game. Yeah, someone else also did suggest a loop game, but I don't really get how that connects. But yeah, we have an idea already, so let's see. Yes, this project. Okay, I'm gonna start with making some sprites. So let's say SPR layer, and I just wanna see. Let's see what resolution we wanna make it. So I just know um, what sizes I need. Hopefully, I have like really high DPI on this, so hopefully it's all readable, like all the text and everything, and it should be readable for you. But yeah, the room size is 1366 by 768, and let's make an object first. And put this into room. See if this size is okay. Hmm. I wanna make something larger, so let's actually make it 1080p, and so the sprite might be a little small now. You expect one type of game where you fight monsters, but they aren't necessarily a bad guy, can't base it off looks anyways. Okay, so by not being bad guys, you mean like they might not harm you, or like defeating them might not give you something good but have the opposite effect. So it's unpredictable in terms of what the outcome is gonna be by defeating an enemy on the screen. Yeah, that's a good idea as well. Like I said before, like if any of you are joining the jam and you see any good ideas here, feel free to like make anything that you like, because we're all brainstorming together here for everyone. Right, so 1080p is pretty good enough. And I think 64 by 64, this sprite size works. I could make it 80 by 80, that would be a bit. A roguelike wherein every room you enter has random enemies and random theming, forcing the player to be prepared for everything, maybe sci fi being low gravity and weather giving status effects. Yeah, that makes sense. But in that sense, roguelikes are already predictably unpredictable, because there's a combination of enemies and rooms you can get. You don't know which one's gonna come next, but you know, like, you've seen what different kinds of rooms you get. So in that way, roguelikes are already predictably unpredictable. King game where the food fights back. I think a lot of people here just want a dating sim. So I hope to see a lot of dating sims come out of this jam. You could just make a pretty simple game with the wrong controls. Sure. I'm not a fan of that, like messing up controls, because it really like puts me off. But yeah, that's one idea. What if defeating the X color of enemy changes the weather? That's also because I was thinking for now, yeah, we would change the theme every few seconds. But yeah, it could be something like that as well. I'm thinking going ahead, we could add something like that, or like we could add multiple ways in which the weather changes. That would really add complexity. Okay. I think I should add some text just so people who are coming in they know what we are doing. So Okay, that's a very poorly written explanation, but for any new person who comes in, that should give them a basic idea of what we are making. So, the weather could limit the enemies you can attack. Okay, we're getting a lot of good ideas, and these are the ideas that yeah later on we can look at and see we can see how the game plays. But let's see, let's get something basic working, and then we can look at the variations and everything. But these are good ideas. I started using GameMaker a few weeks ago. I won't be in this game jam, but next one. That's fine. If you learn something, you can still join with the basic knowledge, but yeah, there is a basic like fundamental level of skill that you do need to make something of your own if you just like followed a couple of tutorials. So I do understand. You're a pirate that wants to be a morally good person. Okay, that's more of a I guess story kind of thing. Okay, I need to draw something for the player, so I'll just make a simple face. And I'm gonna be making everything in white because I'm gonna be coloring it with code. This is like peak art. This eye is too small. See, arting is hard. Okay, that's my player. I'm gonna just change my default origin to middle center because I am gonna use that all the time anyway. And for the enemies, I need three different kinds, but they're gonna be different colors. So I don't need to make them like different enemies. They can be the same enemy, but there'll be different colors in code. Okay. Yeah, having a notepad full of ideas is pretty good. Coming up with ideas and trying to make them really was how I learned GameMaker because I never really stuck to one project anyway. So, okay, this needs to be a enemy. So, let's use this brush. They look worried now. Okay, this is better. Let's just stick with that. And we need three kinds of attacks. But I'm wondering, like, since we're using colors anyway, we could use the same sprite for the attack. But I'm actually gonna make three different sprites because I wanna. So SPR attack. I'm gonna make different attacks in the same sprite. So I'm gonna be making different frames. So I'll set the FPS to 0 so it doesn't make an animation. So I'm gonna make a attack that I'll need to rotate. So the best thing to do here is make it face right by default because 0 degrees is it faces right in GameMaker. Okay, so this is my J attack because I'm gonna be using J, K, and L as the three attacks. and I need something that's like K but not really a K. So it can be this. It looks like a leaf right now. I don't want it to look like a leaf. So maybe that's better. Looks really dangerous. But that sort of says K. And for L, let's see, it could be an inverted version of this, or okay, let's make it this. So that's the L attack. What is the theme of the jam? It is predictably unpredictable. And if you want to join or check it out for yourself, the link is here in the chat. And let's get back to making this. Okay, middle center, all good. That's all we need for now. Let's, so in the room we should be able to change the background's color. Let me see how we can actually do that, because I want to be able to change the color of the background, and there has to be some function for that. So let me just zoom this in so you can see better. So layer background get ID is how you get the background of a layer, and then layer background blend is how you should be able to change its color. So let's do that. There's a bit of crackle on the mic. I think my phone usually does that. If I set it to airplane mode, it fixes that. So hopefully now it doesn't, but let me know if it does. Just gonna put my phone here. Okay, it should be, I hope it's better now, but just let me know. So the player is there, I want to be able to change the background. So let's just make a manager. If you join the Discord server, maybe someone there can help out. Okay, manager, put that in the room. Seems to be gone. Awesome. I think the phone signal kind of does that after a squeak. Okay, maybe the cable was loose. Maybe it's that. But awesome. So it's gonna be my player object. Sorry, the manager object is gonna actually manage the changing colors and everything. I wanna make this the text larger. Okay, it's too large. And I don't want this in every new event, so that's good. So I put it in the room, and let's see if we can change the color of the background. So let's get the background layer. So layer, background, get ID, background. Then let's change layer, background, blend, C, red, to pass in the layer element actually. See if that does anything. Awesome, so that works. So we are able to change the background of our layer. So let's actually store that in an instance variable, because I want to be able to use that later on. Let's set up the weathers now, and I'm gonna set them up in the variables over here because I want to be able to set the colors. So let's do that. If I make it a list, if multi-select is on, then this is an array of expressions. So we can make an array here, but we can't color it. Okay, so let's just initialize our colors here. So let's go with like basic red, green, and blue, because we want 3 colors. So color red is gonna be a color, and let's make it a bit red but like a bit softer. My player sprite is white, but I'm probably gonna color that later on. Let's add a green. I don't know why I always go in the order of red, blue, green when it's actually red, green, blue, RGB. I do remember like before GameMaker Studio 2, if you wrote a hex code, it would read it as RBG, red, blue, green, for some reason, if anyone remembers that. So I think it's probably because of that I go in the red, blue, and green order myself. I'm gonna make these colors a bit lighter, because I think if I make them too strong and if it keeps changing every few seconds, it's gonna get a bit annoying. So see, I wrote green but I chose a blue because I always go like red, blue, and green. It's probably because of old GML, so I blame that. So color green is gonna be a green actually. And let's see. Okay, let's make it, yeah, this is nice. So color ID, so that's actually the background color ID. So let's use that, and let's see our colors. I'm gonna just use the ones that I defined. Oh, the RGB and RPG debate goes way back. I see. Isn't it kind of like how some programs use, like the y-axis is up to down, and in some it's like down to up. So sort of like that. Color blue. And for now, let's just set up an alarm that does this. So let's see. Let's say right now it changes every 3 seconds. And 3 seconds again. So color ID, we increase that, and if color ID is greater than or equal to the array length of colors, we set color ID to 0. But it is predictable in that like it all only increases. So I could make it like it either increases or it decreases, so it could go either way. So if it does go below 0, then let's set it to the last element in the array, and then I want to make a function that actually changes the background. So let's say apply color ID. So apply color is fine, and I want to call that whenever we change it in the alarm, and I want to call that in the create event, so the color is applied. So if I get the current color from the colors array with the color ID value, I can, so now I have the color, so I should be able to just call layer background blend with this. So the background layer is this and the color is this. Why not use a time source instead of an alarm? Because I'm actually used to alarms. See, time sources are better if you actually wanna delta time everything, but I don't have much time here, so I'm not gonna worry about delta timing at all. I'm just gonna make a simple 60 FPS game. So alarms are fine for this basic test project. In an actual big project, I would use time sources. Okay, it's working. The colors are changing. So it's going red. Yeah, it went back and it went forward and then went forward. So sort of the randomization is working. It's going forward still. Now it went back. So the randomization with the color changing, it's working. The green is really bright, so I will tone that down. I want to see the blue. If you can come to that, please give me blue. Yes, yeah, I'll make the blue also a bit darker, uh, and the green definitely really bright. It's really standing out. Okay, let's code in some movement. What if I put like, so let me just increase this just to test. What if I put a border effect on this? So is there a border effect in here? Outline, yeah. I just put a black outline. That should make it look nice. Increase the radius, pixel scale. Okay, nice, I like that. And I also want to add a drop shadow, but you can only apply one effect to a layer, so let's stick with this for now, and let's make some basic movement. Right, move speed, let's say 5 for now. Let's just get movement, basic code that I've written probably 1,000 times by now. But if you do have code that you keep reusing and you want it like in multiple projects, like if it's like a base part of every project that you start, you can actually make a template. If you export it as a template, it should show up like on your start screen, and you can just use that template as a starting point. So the okay, so let's just make variables from for the x and y movements, because I want to be able to interpolate it to make it smooth. But for now, let's just make it basic, like just jump to the value and moving collide. I'm not going to use moving collide right now because I know I don't want to think of collisions at all. Are the plugins extensions coming soon? So you mean IDE plugins? You can check the roadmap for that. I don't exactly remember when it is planned for, but they might be planned for this year. But just check the roadmap once. If you just Google GameMaker roadmap. But yeah, basic movement is working. I wanna add some interpolation into this, linear interpolation, love. And let's make it not to lose, so 0.2 should be good, but it always, even if it's subtle, it makes it feel nice, right? Let's make it a bit faster. I want this to be kind of a fast-paced game, right? And let's also add a background, because I want to add a camera, but I want it actually, you should be able to see movement, like there should be a background. If it's plain, you can't see movement. So let's make this, let's just add some basic stars and shapes in there. Let's see how that tiles first. Cool. I'll just scale that up a bit, so it's very small. It's a bit better. Let's make it a bit fainter. Okay. Is this a top down? Yeah, it is top down. Okay, we have a background, so I can add a camera. Let's do that. So room settings. I would, for my own projects, just make a camera with code, but just to save some time, I'm gonna use this player as the object following target, and then half of this for the borders. And now we need to have a larger room. I don't think I want a large room that the player can move around, because I want the enemies to just be able to spawn anywhere outside of the room, and then come in. Let's see how we'll make it work. I'm not too sure about that, but I'm gonna increase the size a bit so that we can at least have some room to move around. And let's put this here. Let's see, this should work. What's the thought behind the rainbow background? So that's basically the weather that changes, and that changes what kind of attacks the enemies do. So I'm just gonna update the text so it says that the weather is the background color. This theme is a bit complicated, yeah, but it's also, if you can think of something unique beyond the basic predictable unpredictability of any combat system, like any Souls like combat system, if you can think of something unique, then it'll be truly unique because the theme isn't really telling you what to do. So all games really beyond the basic predictable unpredictability in combat systems, every game I think here is gonna be unique because this is a not an easy theme. So the idea that you come up with based on that will be unique to you. Okay, that's cool. Let's add some enemies, and I want there to be spawn points where the enemies spawn, just so it's not like entirely random and it's like showing up in random places in the room. Why is it that you would use a camera rather than the viewports if you had a more time? That's a great question. So, if I just make a camera with code, I'm telling the camera what to do and how to move myself instead of GameMaker telling it. And so I can have more control on it. I can apply smoothing, like interpolation. I can make it like look ahead and based on input. You can do whatever, right? The basic GameMaker viewport system is just gonna stick the camera onto the target, and that's it. So it's gonna try to maintain this border, so you can try to play around with that for like some, uh, just the so the player doesn't instantly move the camera. So you have a bit of leeway in that, but like yeah, smoothing, interpolation, all that you can add yourself if you're doing the camera by code. And there's also a specific issue of like if you're making a low resolution game, and this was covered in a in the last part of the RPG series. If you're using a low resolution camera and you're going like decimal points with your movement, then the camera sort of starts, it sort of doesn't work perfectly because it doesn't do decimal positions or something like that. So we had to, like in the RPG series, make a camera ourselves for that, just so it can do decimal positions. So that's why I would do that. But this is not a low resolution game, so it's not gonna be an issue for this. But let's make some spawn points. So this is where enemies show up. So you're not gonna see it in the game, but this is what I am gonna put in the room wherever I want enemies to show up. So obj, say enemy spawner. So you thought spawn the enemy outside of the room, then they come in multiple doors. Yeah, I'm not sure what I actually want for the enemies. I could put some spawn points outside the room, but yeah, let's do it with spawn points anyway, because that's a bit more predictable for me. as the person programming the game, because I can control exactly where the enemies will show up and won't show up, with not so much work being put into the algorithm that's generating them. So I'm gonna make it not visible so you can't see it in the game. Let's put some in the room, and I don't want them to get like outlined even in the editor, so let's make a separate layer for that and call this spawners. Mm-hmm. Let's put some this logo. This sprite is sort of reminding me of the Quake 3 logo, but yeah, let's do this for now. Let's put some outside the room as well. So we've sort of covered a broad area with that. So let's see, let's spawn some. I need a spawn manager now to actually spawn in the enemies. So let's put that in here. Even this is getting the outline, that's funny. Okay. So the spawn manager in the create event, let's just take all the instances that exist for the, the spawner. But let me see if there's actually a way to get like a list of instances for an object. That's not it. So you can get the count of it. I don't know if I'm forgetting if there's a way to get all of them. I know with the width one you can do it. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to like get the count, the like the instance number. Yeah, because count is for all the instances, right? So instance number, and then like go through all of them, put that in the array, and so on. So let's do that. What engine is easiest for beginners? GameMaker or Pico 8? I've never actually used Pico 8, so I don't know. Try both. Like follow tutorials, try both, and see what you like better. It just takes a day to try a new engine. So spawn account, instance number, obj. If anyone has any questions at any point about anything, just feel free to ask. Okay, spawners, let's make an array out of that. Let's go through every spawner ID and instance number, obj spawn. So it's gonna get the number of instances, and then we get a particular spawner with instance find obj enemy spawner, and then we get the one at I, and then we push that into the array. So that should get all the spawners into a nice array. And for spawning the enemies, let's just make a simple alarm So let's say every 3 seconds for now it spawns a new enemy. Let's add the alarm. And we can make this like go down eventually so that enemies spawn more frequently, but we can do that later on. And let's make a function, because like if you want to do the same thing like out in an alarm but like outside of an alarm as well, because I want to spawn enemy in the create event as well, right? Not just in the alarm. So you can just make a function for that. You just call that function in the alarm and you call the same function in the create event. So it, can you explain the new GMRT runtime in more detail? No matter how much I read about it, I still couldn't quite get what will be different about it. Will it work more like VM or YYC? I guess it's more like YYC because it's. I don't think it's interpreted anymore, or like I don't exactly know that, but I know like it's gonna be faster and like more up to date, and like sort of the same code base across engines. So less work for us also to add a feature in multiple platforms, so faster updates and like better performance. And if you've ever used like ID numbers and all in GML, that'll be a bit more like sort of OOP languages with like stuff being structs or objects that you can get info from. Right now the focus is on like compatibility, but eventually after that it gets easier to add new features, and then the graphics pipeline that it's based on sort of gives you more control as well. I think it's called web GPU or something, like some new tech. I forget the name because there's two things. Yeah, there's WebGL, that's HTML5, and then there's web GPU is the new thing that's based on, and then it would have um, yeah, like other languages support as well. So there's a lot, and I think there's a blog that we put out that you can read as well. But it's like basically the future of GameMaker, like the future of GameMaker runtime that it needs to move to, because at this point it's like outdated, like a bit outdated, like based on a lot of old code. So it is like the update that needs to happen for it, and it makes GameMaker better in like many ways. Not necessarily adding new features right at the start, but like it makes it better in a lot of ways that even I right now don't remember. But yeah, it's gonna be great basically. We are in the game dev school and all students are watching. Greetings from Brazil. Amazing. Hi everybody. Nice. If anyone has any questions, you can just write them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. So, spawn enemy. So it needs to pick a random spawner. So let's just so spawner count. Let's make that a instance variable. And now I can just say I random spawner count -1, and I think I random is inclusive, so it includes the last result. So that's why we -1 it, so it doesn't return like the size of the array, but it returns the last element. Didn't open that for some reason, but let's just search it. Okay, I random. Pretty sure it is inclusive. Yeah, it is inclusive. So good idea to -1 it. Otherwise, it's gonna crash if it ends on a number that is outside of the array's range. So the spawner would be from the array with the spawner ID. And I haven't even made a object for the enemy, so let's do that. Okay, and where's the spawner? There it is. So it can create an instance on that spawner's position in the instances layer, and it's gonna make the object enemy instance, and it should just do that now. If I'm not missing anything, let's see. Thank you. I'm getting compliments on my art. So if it's working, we should see enemies spawning. But I've been coding a lot, so I might have just. Oh, there we go. So enemies are spawning. Amazing. Yeah, I like the feeling when you just write a lot of code and you compile and it just works. It doesn't error or anything. Yeah, that's the fourth spawner that we are seeing. I know there are more spawners, so, but it is working, right? So it is placing these instances, these enemies onto random spawners. And now I want the enemies to move, but we can make them move towards the player, but I don't want every enemy ending up chasing after. Oh, that's another spawner that we are seeing work now. I don't want every enemy to be chasing after the same point. So I want there to be some rotation as well, so that it sort of rotates around you. But let's figure that out now. So the enemies are spawning. Let's figure out how to make these move. So move speed, let's say for the player speed is 8, so that might be a bit slow, but we'll see. And for now, let's just get the direction towards the player. So point direction. First of all, like, now what's happening is this object, like, all enemy instances are gonna depend on the player instance existing for this code, because it needs to follow the player. So it's good to add like a failsafe, like if the player doesn't exist for any reason, like if you later decide to that you're able to remove the instance, like if the player dies or something, then you just exit the event so the enemies don't do anything. And so this way, if the player stops existing, your code, at least, it won't crash. So let's now get the position and the I want the, well, I don't want the distance to it, just want the direction, because for the length we are only gonna use the move speed that we have, because, like, think of it as a vector. So now if we get, so now that we have a vector means like you have a length and you have a direction, but you want to convert it into x and y code values, because that's how instances work. So you just do that with length dir x. So that's the length of the vector and that's the direction. Let's do that for y. And just add that. So this should move towards the player now. Now what, I'm gonna add an enemy into the room, a couple of them, just to have something to start off with. And yeah, we need to give the enemies colors as well, so we're gonna implement that later on. But they are not moving. They are pretty angry. They don't want to move. So object enemy. Oh, I told it to exit the event if the player exists. So just make sure you have the condition right. If the player doesn't exist, then you exit. Okay, there they are. I think that's a bit too fast because it's sort of a defensive game, isn't it? They're sending out attacks and you need to parry them. So just make the move slow. Yeah, just so you can move and sort of get away from them. So I was exiting if it exists. Okay. Now I want there to be some sort of directional bias so that it doesn't, so that they don't all move towards the same location. So let's make it a range. So they should all have a bias of, let's say, at least 30 to like we'll need to test this, but I don't want to make it too much. Let's say like wait, 10 to 40. My keyboard is doing something weird, but then I don't just want it to be positive, so I just multiply that with either 1 or -1, so it can be either this way or that way. Hi Roman, what's up? Is that Toby Fox? Where? I don't see him, guys. Don't scare me like that. Like, that was really predictably unpredictable. Okay, and if I add that directional bias into the final direction, then not everyone will move towards the exact same point. So this guy's going here, this guy's going here. So they have that bias. Let's increase that a bit. Wait. So let's say like 20 to even 60. So that may be too much. Right, just to add like a bit of, just so not everything is moving towards the same position. The choose function just gives you one of the arguments that you passed into it randomly. So you tell it things and it gives you one of them. So it's like I'm giving you multiple options and you choose what you want to give me back. So it's like part of random generation. But instead of numbers, you're doing it with like different options. That's fine. What if I tried something? What if I do like move and collide, but I do it with just the enemy, so it doesn't collide with any other enemy? That is working. If you apply the direction bias to the direction, it will always be off from the player. Yeah, it's always gonna be off, and that is intended. Because at least that way, like they're still moving towards the player. Like it doesn't need to be exactly towards the player's coordinates as long as they are coming towards the player. So that is fine. And the move and collide thing is working pretty well. I mean, we do the same thing in the RPG tutorial as well, but yeah, like you see, it's working pretty well. So it's pretty good. Like all I've done here is just run move and collide and put in the enemy as the collider, like the thing that we want to collide against, and it's working pretty well. So, so I want to give these colors, but then I don't want it to be the exact same as the background. So I'm just gonna make the background a bit darker because we're gonna be using the same colors for the enemies, right? So I don't want them like completely blending in. And now when it's created, it should grab one of the colors from obj manager. Thank you, Super Wooper. Thank you, Sonic Factory. I'm glad you like the videos. Um, so colors, the color array. Let's make a function to get a random color from this. So let's call this get random color, and let's get a random color ID. So let's just do irandom. So irandom is it gets any integer, so it's not gonna give you a decimal value, but the random function will give you a decimal value. Since we are working with arrays, we don't need decimal values, we just need integers. Thank you, I appreciate that. So irandom on the array length of colors -1, same as we did before, and this returns the color of the random color ID that it gets. So we should be able to just call this. I could check if the manager exists or not, but I'm just gonna assume that it does because it's the manager. So image blend is sorry, it's from all manager get random color, and the attack will be dependent on that. So we are gonna need to store the number of the color in the enemy, not just the color. So let's make this actually return the color ID. So just return the color ID and we'll figure out the color later on. But let's make this function get color, which returns the color ID that you gave it. So you might be wondering, like, why make a get color function and not just directly use the colors variable or array. If you're doing it from like an external object, like I wanna get the color from obj enemy, then it's sort of safer to do it with a function in case anything internal about this instance changes. Like just assume that any variable that you make here is internal to this. So since we have get random color ID now, I'm gonna assign that to a color ID variable inside this, and then for the image blend I'm gonna use the color ID that I got. So this is deciding the color for the enemy randomly, and then it's using that to get the actual color for the image blend. Okay, both of these are green. Then there's the blue one. They are stuck. Um, Probably because they spawned on the same spawn point while, or maybe like that enemy was moving through while the other enemy spawned. So that's weird. I can add like a collision check to just move it away. Let's do that. It should be easy enough. So it's the step event where everyone's moving, right? So in the end step event, let's check if you're colliding with anything. It's glitchy already, like every good jam game. It's the glitches that make the game good. Enemy in place, instance place, right here, enemy. If an enemy is found, then let's get the direction towards that enemy, and let's say we want to move like 50 pixels away, and yeah, let's turn it around so we move away from the enemy, and let's move the enemy by that amount. So let's see if the glitch still happens with this. And because it is random, I think the same things happen every run while you're testing, unless you call the randomize function. So I think that glitch should happen again, but like it might not, because I'm moving differently, right? So that affects how the enemies are moving. But let's see if that's a lot of angry people moving after me. They look cute though. Nice. There's a lot of enemies also. I am gonna make the frequency a bit low, so let's say like 5 seconds. Let's make that a variable. So enemy spawn interval, let's make it 5 seconds. Let's use that in the alarms. And now we want to make the enemies send out attacks based on what color they are. So I need another array that stores which attack is sent out. And okay, I don't need an array because the ID that I have here, I can just apply that to the frame number, and then the frame number is the same as the color ID, and so based on that you need to press a specific button. Okay, let's do that. Not before drinking some more water. I'm gonna repeat. If you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to interrupt and just ask. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So we need an alarm here to send out an attack. So let's say attack interval, and in seconds, let's make it 2 seconds for now. Yo, what's going on? So we're making a game for the viral glitch jam, and this is a theme, and there's sort of a basic explanation for the game that we are making uh, right here. So let me add an alarm for that. So I need an object for the attack. And thank you. A lot of you might know now I made a short on this. If you're calling instance create, you can pass in the variables you want to give to that instance as a struct in the last argument. So previously you would have to like do dot and then set the variable. You don't have to do that anymore. And all of these are applied before the create event, so you can then use these in the create event. So let's give it the image blend. Should be the same now. It's a struct, so you don't use equal. And of course the image index, which should be the color ID. And then for this, just want, oh, we should also store like what is the enemy that created this. So creator self, because I don't know if that would actually refer to the self of the struct though, so let's just do ID to be safer. And creator doesn't exist in the variable definitions, but we don't have to worry about that. If you want, you can make one here, because that the variables here run before this. So because when we parry an attack, I want that attack to go back and hit the enemy that created it. Again, like I'm basically copying Doom the Dark Ages, but I really like that system and it works for this game. So that's what I want to happen. So storing the creator here, let's just make a basic one and set it to no one by default. So okay, it's gonna make the attacks, and for the attacks we need a speed, which needs to be pretty fast but not that fast. So let's try like 7 for now. And should it be able to follow the player in real time, or should it only follow the direction that it started at? I think we can do both. So let's give it a direction. Towards the player, and in the step event let's set the image angle to the direction. Now we could make it go towards the player, but just a bit. So let's get the new direction to the player. I'll be lazy and copy and paste. And now I can take the difference between the current direction and the new one. And I think it's the other way around with this function. It's a bit confusing with this, but if we add, let's say, a small fraction of that every frame, it should move towards the player, not instantly but bit by bit. One of the attack types should try to curve toward the player. That's basically what I'm doing, but I'm not gonna make it dependent on the attack type because I want all of them to be the same in the way that they move and everything, but what will be different is how you respond to it. So I think this should work, and the enemies should be creating these because I am calling it. So let's see. Moment of truth. Nice. I'm not actually moving it, so again it's the same thing. You get the X component and then you get the Y component and then you do this. And I think something was wrong with the direction, but we'll figure that out. Oh, that's really fast. No, yeah, the direction is okay. And they are all curving towards the player, but not that much, so it's fine. I'm gonna keep it to just one enemy to start off with. Wait, was the theme revealed? Yes. And hoping the theme is Russell yelling GameMaker. That's what the theme is. So that's what I'm making the game about as well. So I'm waiting to see your game on that theme, which is definitely the theme of the jam. So for now, let's just reduce the frequency of the enemies showing up because I want to test this out, right? And I don't want these attacks every 2 seconds. I'd make it like every 3 seconds for now. And it's moving too much towards the player, so let's lower that. Yeah, that's a bit better. I want to make them slower though, so let's make the enemies a bit slower. So we can see, like, we already have the color system working at least, because the attacks that they sent out during the color that they sent out an attack, that's the color that the attack takes on. So that is working, but like I said, I want even the attacks that have been sent out to change. But if I make the attacks that were sent out use the same color as the weather right now, then all of the attacks will be the same. So either I will make them stick to what they were, or they either change whenever the weather changes, like it goes to the next one. Yeah, I think we can do that. Like, it's like the active attacks, they cycle through the attacks, the attack types, whenever the color changes. So we can do that. Let's do that. And I have like maybe 45, 50 more minutes, so almost an hour more for the stream. So let's see how much we've actually been able to, we actually gonna be able to make. But uh, like I thought, like this stream so far really has been a collaboration, because whatever I'm doing here, these ideas I did get from the chat. So thank you for that. So even if I don't finish this game, at least we made something together. So that's awesome. Zooming in on the camera would add a degree of difficulty. Yeah, and not knowing where the enemy is coming from. Yeah. What about making them pause movement when their color is on? That's interesting. I'll think about that later. I'll make the basic things that I wanna make first. So let's see. Whenever the manager changes color, let's call a function in every attack object, change color. So now over here I can just do with obj attack change color. So change color, and over here it I need a function over here to get max colors. Oh, let's do get next color ID. So color ID here, so color ID plus plus, and then we use this same condition and we turn that. So here I can just say so the image index should be obj manager dot get next color ID of the color ID of the image index. So now this way in the obj attack I don't have to worry about how many colors there are, or like what the array is called, or get its length. Like I can just call this function and the function is gonna handle everything with the array. So it makes this code a bit nicer. You don't have to worry about its variables, you just have to worry about like the sort of public facing functions. Is there a benefit to writing something equals function instead of function something? So that's the second one is what you would use for script functions. Like here it says like function script, and if you initialize this way, then internally it would initialize in a different manner. It would still work, but there are like edge cases where it wouldn't work in an object the way you would expect it to. Like it changes some internal things about them. So it's really recommended, like if you're making a function in an object, then you just use this syntax, because that's gonna make a method like an object method, which is what you're expecting. So using an object, just use this. So we change the image index, and then we change the image blend as well, because we already have the get color function, so it changes the color. So now the attacks should cycle whenever the color changes. So it's blue right now, it became red. Just adding more unpredictability, but like the theme says, predictable unpredictability. Okay, pretty cool. Let me see what the frequency is like, because I think a lot of them are appearing really fast. Yeah, we have like 4 already. So let's make it a bit more slower to respawn enemies, and let's also make it a bit more slower to attack. And now we can actually start adding the parrying, and let's make that work first, because we need a radius for it. And it's like that's a radius, like when it comes close to you, there's a collision radius. When you press the button, if it's in that collision radius, it's gonna effectively just parry the attack. So um let's see, the attack, or let's just say the parry radius, or I don't know why I feel more comfortable with attack radius, so let's go with attack radius. um let's make this the sprite width a bit less than that for now, and let's just draw it out. And just gonna use draw end for this. It just confused me that the function didn't turn orange in older versions. Okay, that makes sense, but in that case you can just understand that it's making a method variable, so it's more like a variable if it gets that color. If you are on an older version, then that makes sense. So let's draw that and say that input color for now, let's make it white. But we're gonna draw the input color on the circle based on what input you're giving, just so like as a test we know like, okay, the button for the correct color is being pressed. So that's the attack radius and collision, oh sorry, color. Right, it gets 2 colors because you can make it a gradient, but I don't want to make it a gradient. And outline is false, so I don't want an outline. There's no alpha property though. So let's see if we can use draw set alpha. Okay, so that's the parry radius that we have, and I'm gonna make it a bit larger. That's really close to the player's hitbox, and actually for the player's hitbox, let's just bring it down a bit because it's just gonna make the game a bit easier. And might just make it an ellipse. Nice. So I'm imagining patting them from that radius, but yeah, you wouldn't want to hit them, but you would just want to parry them. So let's figure out how to do the inputs. So if I make an array for this and store the input for each color, now in the player I want to be able to attack and have a parry window so that it's within that parry window that you can hit one of them, one of the objects. And while it's doing that, I want to be able to display the key of the color of the key that you pressed. So let's make a function get color ID from key, and it should be able to find the index of that key from the array. So this function returns the first index at which a given element can be found in the array. It's the inputs array, and we pass in the key, and then it returns the index. So let's make a variable for the parry window, which let's make it like 20 frames for now. We are jamming, so there's the viral glitch game jam that just started. It's a 2-week jam, and we are making a game on this theme, which there's a brief description of the game we are making right here. And the parry time, so it's just so we know that we are parrying. So for now, let's just see if we are able to detect which input was pressed. So let's check an input from any key, and the key that was pressed should be in keyboard last key. And let's just see if this works at all. Okay, I want to see the wait, how do I actually convert that? And yes, as one of the people who write the manual, I use the manual a lot. So what I'm looking for is game input and keyboard input. So I don't know if that's the function I'm looking for, but let's just see if it gives us the key for the color ID that we pressed. So get color ID from key. Last character, yeah, that would be actually much better to test. Yeah, instead of trying to find it from last key. Let's see. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that. Yes, it's working. Um, let's see. From this, what I wanna actually pass is the ORD for that. Yeah. Yeah, I think if I use last key, I should be able to use char and or what was it? What was the function for that called? I think I closed this. Yeah, so what's the function I was looking for? Why is everything on the left? Oh, that must have been a misclick. Okay. I hope it wasn't like that for a long while. But I haven't done much in the last couple of minutes, so it should be fine. Oh, it's CHR. That's why I was getting confused. So if I do this, is that gonna work? Yeah, it's working. That's working. So that's what I. So this should now return the color ID from the key that we give it. And let's see if that works. Perfect. So now you might be able to see the numbers down there in the output log. So if I press any other key, it gives me -1. But if I press J, it gives me 0. If I press K, it gives me 1. And if I press L, it gives me 2. And that's all coming from this array. And I haven't checked for these specific keys anywhere. So that's working. And so if the color ID is not -1, then we know that we've pressed a correct button for the attack. And then let's also make sure that the parry time is greater than or equal to 0. And then we want to set the parry time to the parry window. And then we want to store which attack we have done. So let's make a variable for that attack color ID. So we know we are working with the same type. And set the attack color ID to the color ID that we got back from the function. How do we join the edges of the objects? I'm not sure what you mean. If you're talking about attaching instances together, we recently put out a video for that, so check that out. And you might want to do something specific as for where you want them to be relatively. So we are storing the color ID and the parry time, we are setting that. So later on, but actually like before that, so let's do that in the begin step event. If the parry time is greater than 0, then we bring it down. If it's greater than -1, then we bring it down. And then over here, if the color is gonna be white by default, or let's make it gray. The black borders of the objects. Oh, so in the room I've just got the instances layer, and that's where all of these instances are placed. So I've just selected it and gone under filters and effects and selected the outline effect. Just adjusted the settings. So it's that simple. So if parry time, I think I should have a simpler version variable for that. So if parrying, so let's set the parrying to false by default, and set parry to, and we only want to be able to attack if parry time is below 0, so I got that wrong. And let's set parrying to true over here, and if parry time goes below 0, then we set parrying to false. Let's just check for the parrying variable here. Set to true, set the parrying time, and as long as it keeps going down, goes below 0, set parrying to false. So here if you check, if we are parrying, then we set the input color to the attack color ID. So let's see if that works. Why can't you use multiple filters on one layer? I do know if you want to use multiple filters, then you can add a effect layer, but that would affect every layer below it. So you can just apply one effect to one layer, but it would be cool to be able to apply multiple effects to one layer. So you can submit that as a feature request on GitHub, and it will get looked at by the right team. So let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm able to do different attacks, but I don't think it's getting the correct color. Just gonna increase the alpha a bit just so I can see it better. But yeah, the issue is that I'm passing in the color ID and not the color. So let's make a variable for the attack color, just see by default, and when we do attack, let's get the color from the color ID. See, these making these functions over here to access stuff out of this object makes it so much easier, because you don't have to worry about that object's variable names and everything. You just call a function and it gives you something from that instance, so it makes it really easy. I'm not using the correct, yeah, so instead of that color ID, I now need to use a that color. There we go. So if I'm pressing J, that's the red attack. If I'm pressing K, that's the green attack. And if I'm pressing L, that's the blue attack. And all of that correlation between the colors and the inputs is coming from this, from these arrays. So now the next thing we need to do is that when I press a button, and if I press like the red button and it touches the red object, then it should send it back. And same way, like the red won't affect green or blue, but you need to press the right color to parry the right attack. So if we're gonna do that, I'm gonna take a break for just a couple minutes, but I'll be back. And until then, you can listen to my last song that I made for GameMaker.
GameMaker is a tutorial about surfaces and shaders. We are back. So a surface is a canvas where you can draw what you like a shape or a sprite, and then you draw that surface to the screen. And seeing how simple this is, let's see how to code it. You call surface create, give it a width and a height, and then you write a variable for it to be stored inside. You set the target to your surface, and once this is called, anything that you draw will be stored in the surface. But it won't appear on the screen yet. Won't appear on the screen. Once you finish drawing everything you wanted, you reset the target and now we can do what we want. You call draw surface. Call the draw surface function. Give it the surface and position where you want to be seen, and then your surface with everything will finally be drawn to the screen. Now on to shaders. All art for your game is stored in a space. It's called a texture page. And everything you draw is pulled from the texture. It's pixel by pixel. It's picked up and put on the screen. A shader lets you decide on how the pixels are pried, taken from the page with the image and displayed to be gazed upon. And here's how GameMaker shader works by default. This function takes the color from the texture you enter. Position is next. It gets the vector of the color it finds. RGBA inside this type that goes to the screen to be seen. Then it does the same thing for every pixel. Same thing for every pixel. You can add your own code and do whatever you want. Change the color, position, have control on how things are drawn. Then set the shader. Use the shader set function. And then whatever you draw will go through your shader code. And then you reset the shader to what it was there by default. You can pass values. Pass values into the shader. You make a uniform type in the shader file. Then you get it, snip set it just after you set the shader. That's the tutorial. That is it for the tutorial. I hope you learned something new and that you had some fun. Now I'll take my leave, exit the room, cause you know that I'm done. GameMaker is a tutorial about surfaces and shaders. We are back. So a surface is a canvas where you can draw what you like a shape or a sprite. And then you draw that surface to the screen. And seeing how simple this is, let's see how to code it. You call surface create, give it a width and a height, and then you write a variable for it to be stored inside. You set the target to your surface, and once this is called, anything that you draw will be stored in the surface. But it won't appear on the screen yet. Won't appear on the screen. Once you finish drawing everything you wanted, you reset the target and now we can do what we want. You call draw surface. Call the draw surface function. Give it the surface and position where you want to be seen, and then your surface with everything will finally be drawn to the screen. Now on to shaders. All art for your game is stored in a space. It's called a texture page. And everything you draw is pulled from the texture. It's pixel by pixel. It's picked up and put on the screen. A shader lets you decide on how the pixels are pried, taken from the page with the image and displayed to be gazed upon. And here's how GameMaker shader works by default. This function takes the color from the...
Okay, we back. I think the mic is on now. Awesome. Okay, let's get back into this. So, yeah, I made the... So you'll be destroying the attack after a second or two then. It'll send it back as soon as you press the right button within the right time. But yeah, let me make something in the attack object. I'm glad you like the song. Let's make a function that actually sends this back. So there should be a variable that tells whether this has been parried or not, and if it has not been parried, only then it does this stuff, and if it has been parried, it does something else. We'll figure it out. But as for the parry, let's make a function for that. And if it is parried, then okay, parried speed. So this that 10, and over here, let's just get the direction towards its creator, and if it's parried and its creator doesn't exist, let's just destroy the instance and exit the event. Exit the function over here, and otherwise gonna set parry to true. It's gonna get the direction of the creator, set that to the direction directly, and for the speed we use the parried speed, and now once it collides with its creator, it should destroy the creator and it should destroy itself. Nice. Now over here, let's just keep checking. If we are parrying, then we check. So I need a list for whatever we collide with. And let's make sure we clean this up. Over here, let's call, so the count will be returned from collision circle list. We know the radius with obj attack, precise false, not means false, list is the parried list, and ordered we don't need it ordered. Why does message turn green like it's an inbuilt variable? It doesn't for me, but it may be because I'm using the new code editor. If you're on the old one, it's doing that because message is part of the info that you get from a struct from a sequence. So there are some of those variables that are highlighted, but like the new code editor doesn't do that because it knows that in this context it doesn't mean anything special, so it's smarter. Still can guess what's coming, but hurts your brain a bit. Yeah, and it changes, and you don't really know what it's gonna change to because it's kind of chaotic. So predictable unpredictability. So we got let's clear the list first, parry list, because it just adds into it, doesn't replace anything. And then now that we have it, we wanna iterate through it with a for loop. Okay. And for now, let's parry all of them. Let's not worry about the color, and just to make sure that it's working. Okay, that worked. So right now if I press it, nothing happens. It just sends it back, and it destroys the original. But like I said, right now I can just press any color and it'll do that. So on the red one I pressed green and it sent it back. It shouldn't do that. What it should do, it should check that it's the same color, and only then it should do it. So let's do that. Let's check it. So only if the attack image index is same as my attack color ID, then we should parry. See if this works. So awesome. Yeah, I have to press the correct one now. So our idea is now finally, after programming all of these systems working, we can send back the correct color by pressing the correct button for that color. I Let's just do this so it always sets the image angle. And I want to add something fun to this actually, because if you parry the correct one, I want to pause the game for a few frames as an effect, which should stop everything. So go into obj manager and let's say hit effect equals -1, and in begin step, so whenever I do like counting stuff like I'm doing here, I do it in begin step, so that if we change it in the step event, it's not going to count it down in the same frame anymore. It's going to count it down in the next frame when it comes back and does begin step. So hit effect, if hit effect is greater than -1, we just reduce it. I want this to be for frames, yeah, so we just reduce it by 1, and let's make a function. Can't you just spam all the colors all the time? Well, you can only press one color at one time, and it's active for 20 frames, so then you can press another. So during that window some other color can come in and then attack you, so you have to strategize. But yeah, let's make a function, set hit effect, set the hit effect to like 25, let's say, and let's make a function to check if we are in the middle of a hit effect, or let's call it should stop, like should I stop, and it returns true if hit effect is greater than -1. So you go into the player and the step event you say if object manager dot should stop, then exit. Just gonna do it everywhere. It would be better if you're using a parent child object system, so that you can just do this in the parent and you don't have to worry about doing it in every object, but just a quick prototype, so it's fine for now. I'll do the same here, and I'm gonna pause the, well, it's using an alarm, so let's not worry about that right now. Okay, let's see. So on pairing, I need to call the set hit effect function. So let's do that. Okay, I see what's happening. I If it has been parried, then I don't need to check it. So if attack has not been parried, only then. That's weird. So we hit attack parry. It sets parry to true. And so then shouldn't be. Alright, I forgot the curly braces, so that's why. Okay. Okay, should work now. Now I think the pause is a bit too long. Just make it short. And let's actually bring in more enemies now. And let's make it attack more frequently. So now we sort of know how the game works. Nice. The pause is still a bit long, so let's make it 5 frames. And right now it does sort of feel like the game like freezes for a few frames. I think 5 frames would be, yeah, that's a bit better. That doesn't feel like the game is lagging or anything. And the effect would be better once you have um, some particle effects and stuff. But obviously this game would be complete once you can actually take damage and lose. Right now you can't. But I'm gonna stop this here for this. You see half my screen? uh it should be okay. Like it's okay on my end. Okay, was that again for just a second then? Yeah, I like the system that we've got, but I'm gonna be um just stopping this here for this stream. But this is a 2-week jam, so I can later on just work on this and finish the game. But I'm happy that we actually got our idea working. Like right now the enemies lose as soon as you parry them and the attack hits them again. But we can add like a health system, and the health system for this would add a lot. And yeah, there's a lot we can do over here. But I'm gonna end the stream here at least. I hope you all had fun and thank you so much for attending. This is the jam, and the theme is predictably unpredictable. I'm gonna put the link over here. Maybe add knockback to the enemies. Yeah, once we add health, knockback would be good. But yeah, I hope you all join the jam. I know there's a prize pool, which is a nice incentive to join and make a game. But uh, I join jams just for the fun of it, just for getting to make games. And I really recommend jams because all my life I've only learned making games through jams. I've never actually made a long project by myself. I guess I like joined every jam out there, and that's how I learned GameMaker. So I really recommend it. You know, any jam that you can find. And this is a 2 week one, so it's got a nice window of time to make your game. So click that link and register. And I hope you make something. And thank you so much for being here and making a game with me, because this really was a collaboration. What we made today, the ideas were all given by you. So this was super fun. I had no idea what I was gonna be making going in, but we got something working, and that was awesome. So thank you so much. It's like almost 11 p.m. here, so I'm gonna end this and then try to go to sleep. But I hope you all have a good day or good night, wherever you are. And happy game making. Have fun. Back to the song.
GameMaker is a tutorial about surfaces and shaders. We are back. So a surface is a canvas where you can draw what you like a shape or a sprite, and then you draw that surface to the screen. And seeing how simple this is, let's see how to code it. You call surface create, give it a width and a height, and then you write a variable for it to be stored inside. You set the target to your surface, and once this is called, anything that you draw